So I just take each day as it comes, and of course I have Tracy and the kids and this wonderful organization of people supporting me.
At 64, Michael J. Fox has entered a stage of life that has many people talking, and recent moments with his family have raised questions that fans can't ignore. People are now wondering what is truly happening behind the scenes and why his family seems more present than ever. Join us as we take a closer look at the tragic diagnosis that has shocked Michael J. Fox and his family. Childhood upheaval. Michael J. Fox's childhood was shaped by constant movement, change, and the need to adjust quickly. Long before he became one of the most recognized faces in film and television, he was a kid learning how to stay steady in a life that rarely stood still. His father served in the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals, which meant the Fox family moved often. By the time Michael was in his early teens, he had already lived in 5 different cities across Canada. Each move meant new schools, new neighborhoods, and new groups of kids to figure out. For many children, this would have been overwhelming. For Michael, it became the first training ground for skills he would later rely on every single day. Living in a military family taught him discipline, but it also taught him flexibility. Every time he arrived somewhere new, he understood he had to fit in fast. He learned to observe people, understand what made them comfortable, and find small ways to connect. Humor became his quickest tool. A joke or a quick comment helped break the ice, and soon he realized that making people laugh gave him a place in every new environment. It wasn't just about attention, it was about stability. If he could make others feel at ease, he could feel at ease too. Humor allowed him to build friendships, avoid conflict, and make unfamiliar places feel a little more like home. But humor wasn't the only skill he gained. Adaptability became a natural part of his personality. He learned how to change course when something didn't go as planned. He learned how to stay calm when life felt uncertain. These traits would become priceless later in life, but even as a kid, they helped him stay grounded during times of constant change. When the family finally settled in Burnaby, British Columbia, Michael had the chance to dream about something long-term for the first time. Like many Canadian kids, he loved hockey. He played hard and with passion, imagining a future on the ice. But as he grew older, reality set in. He stopped growing at 5'4", and his smaller size made it clear that a professional hockey career wasn't going to happen. The realization hurt deeply. It wasn't just the end of a dream, it was the end of the first version of the person he thought he might become. Still, losing that dream opened a door he never expected. With hockey no longer in his future, he found himself spending more time exploring other interests. Music caught his attention first, and he spent hours practicing guitar. Then, almost by chance, he discovered acting in a high school drama class. What started as curiosity quickly became something more. Acting came naturally to him. The timing he had used for jokes became timing for lines. The adaptability he had used to survive new schools became confidence on stage. For the first time, he saw a path that felt both exciting and possible. These early disappointments and changes didn't break him. They shaped him. They built the mindset he would later rely on when life tested him in ways he never could have predicted. And everything he learned in those early years was only the beginning of what he would soon face. The reluctant superstar. Michael J. Fox's rise in Hollywood didn't follow a neat plan. It happened because he trusted his instincts, pushed through every barrier, and stayed ready for any chance that came his way. When he first started acting, he didn't have money, connections, or a clear path. What he did have was drive. His early auditions were a mix of determination and luck. He often showed up to casting calls with little more than confidence and a quick sense of timing. These small breaks led to early roles in films like Midnight Madness and Class of 1984. They weren't huge hits, but they showed casting directors that he had something worth watching. He wasn't a typical leading man, but he had charm, energy, and a way of delivering lines that made people pay attention. Everything changed when he auditioned for Family Ties. The show was originally meant to focus on the parents, but Fox's role as Alex P. Keaton quickly grew into something much bigger. At first, not everyone believed he was the right choice. Brandon Tartikoff, the NBC president at the time, famously said Fox didn't have the kind of face that belonged on a lunchbox. To him, Fox wasn't the type of actor who could become a cultural icon. But once Family Ties aired, audiences proved him wrong almost immediately. Fox's performance was sharp, funny, and full of personality. He stole scenes without trying, and viewers fell in love with Alex's fast-talking confidence. As Fox became the heart of the show, his success only grew. Years later, after he became one of the biggest stars of the decade, he sent Tartikoff a custom-made lunchbox with the message, "This is for you to put your crow in." The lunchbox stayed in Tartikoff's office for years and became a symbol of Fox's unexpected triumph. That triumph reached new heights when he was asked to star in Back to the Future. Director Robert Zemeckis had wanted him from the start, but Family Ties wouldn't release him from his schedule. Only after the first actor didn't work out was Fox brought in. The catch was that he had to film both the movie and the TV show at the same time. His days were spent shooting Family Ties, and his nights were spent on the movie set. He barely slept. He rushed from one studio to another, ate meals in the car, and lived in a constant blur of work. It was exhausting, but he never complained. He believed in the film and gave everything he had. What he didn't realize was that the constant physical stress was an early signal of challenges he would face later. When Back to the Future was released, the world changed for him overnight. The movie became a worldwide hit, and Fox became the face of a new generation of Hollywood stars. People loved his quick humor, his bright energy, and the way he made every scene feel alive. He became one of the most recognizable stars of the 1980s, carrying a sense of joy and excitement that audiences connected with instantly. And just as he reached this incredible high, life was preparing to throw him a challenge he never saw coming. The year everything changed. Michael J. Fox was only 29 when his life took a turn he never expected. At the time, he was one of the busiest and most successful actors in Hollywood, moving from one project to the next without slowing down. That pace made it easy to ignore small changes in his body at first. The earliest symptoms seemed harmless: a twitch in his finger, a tremor in his hand that wouldn't fully stop. At first, he brushed it off, thinking it was stress or exhaustion, but the symptoms stayed. They grew stronger. They appeared at moments he couldn't control. The more he noticed them, the more fear settled in. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't yet know how serious it would be. When he finally met with doctors and went through a full examination, the truth came back in a way he could barely process. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He was young, in great shape, and at the height of his career, so the diagnosis felt impossible. Parkinson's was known as an illness that affected older adults, not someone in their 20s. Hearing the words was shocking, and he later admitted that he walked out of the office unsure of how to face the future. The disease had no cure, and he knew the symptoms would slowly grow stronger over time. It was more than fear. It was grief for the life he thought he had ahead of him. Telling Tracy Pollan, his wife, was one of the hardest moments of his life. They were newly married, still building their future. He didn't want to put such a heavy burden on her, but he couldn't keep the truth from her. When he told her, they cried together. He later said it was the first and last time they cried about Parkinson's. After that moment, they agreed to face whatever came next together. Tracy's strength steadied him, and her support helped him begin to accept what was happening. Even with her by his side, he wasn't ready to tell the rest of the world. He hid the diagnosis from Hollywood for 7 years. During that time, he continued acting non-stop. He memorized lines, performed scenes, and made audiences laugh while privately trying to manage symptoms that were getting harder to control. He depended on medication to keep his tremors in check. He often scheduled his pills around filming so he could appear steady on screen. The effort was exhausting, but he didn't want people to see him differently or doubt his abilities. Living this double life took a toll. In public, he stayed upbeat and charming, showing the same energy people expected from him. In private, he faced long nights of worry, frustration, and fear. He tried to convince himself he could keep going without revealing what he was fighting, but the truth followed him everywhere. The pressure of pretending wore him down, and the emotional weight grew heavier each year. And just as he struggled to hold everything together, his private battle soon pushed him toward a breaking point that would change him even more: alcohol and denial. When Michael J. Fox first heard he had Parkinson's disease, he did what many people do when they are scared and not ready to face the truth. He tried to run from it. On the outside, his life still looked bright. He was working, making people laugh, raising a family, and staying in the public eye as a successful actor. But inside, he was full of fear, confusion, and anger about what was happening to his body and his future. Instead of dealing with those feelings in a healthy way, he slipped back into old habits from his younger, wilder years. Before he got married, Michael had lived a fast life. He partied hard, stayed out late, and drank heavily. After he married Tracy Pollan, those days seemed to be behind him. But once Parkinson's entered the picture, alcohol became a way to escape. Drinking numbed some of the fear. It allowed him to avoid thinking about the disease, the long-term effects, and the fact that his life would never be the same again. The more he drank, the further he drifted from himself and the people he loved. The turning point came one night in 1992. Michael had been drinking heavily and passed out on the couch in their living room. When he woke up, he didn't find shouting or chaos. Instead, he found Tracy standing there, calm but deeply disappointed. She wasn't angry in the way he expected. She didn't yell. She simply looked at him and asked a question that cut straight through every excuse he had built around his behavior. "Is this what you want? Is this who you want to be?" Those words stayed with him. In that moment, he was forced to see himself clearly. He saw not just a man with Parkinson's, but a husband and father who was slowly disappearing behind a bottle. He realized that if he kept going down that path, he would lose more than his health. He would lose his family, his sense of self, and the chance to handle his illness with dignity and strength. The disease was not his choice, but how he responded to it still was. The very next day, he made a decision that changed everything. He quit drinking. This choice was not easy, and it wasn't a quick fix. Sobriety was the beginning of a long, serious process of healing. He started going to therapy, where he could finally talk openly about his fear, sadness, and anger about Parkinson's. Instead of hiding from his feelings, he began to face them. Therapy helped him understand that denial had been controlling his actions. It also helped him build tools to cope in healthier ways. He learned how to be honest with himself, how to accept help, and how to communicate better with Tracy and their children. He took responsibility for his choices and stayed committed to staying sober, one day at a time. These steps slowly rebuilt the emotional foundation he had lost when he turned to alcohol. By choosing sobriety, Michael didn't just stop drinking. He chose to truly live with his illness instead of running from it. And as he began facing Parkinson's head-on, his pain slowly turned into purpose in a way that would soon reach far beyond his own life. The public reveal. By 1998, Michael J. Fox had spent 7 years keeping his Parkinson's diagnosis private. During those years, he worked hard to manage symptoms, maintain his acting career, and protect his family's sense of normal life. But the strain of living in secrecy was growing heavier every day. He reached a point where hiding the truth felt more exhausting than facing it. When he finally announced his diagnosis publicly, it shocked the world. Fans, reporters, and colleagues had no idea what he had been battling behind the scenes. For Michael, the moment was both frightening and freeing. He no longer had to pretend. He no longer had to carry the burden alone. The announcement allowed him to step into a new chapter, even if he didn't yet know what that chapter would look like. Soon after speaking publicly about Parkinson's, Michael took a bold step that changed the course of his life and the lives of many others. He launched the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. This was not a symbolic gesture or a simple celebrity charity. It was born out of urgency. Michael knew that research was the only path toward better treatments and, one day, a cure. He also understood that many people living with Parkinson's didn't have the resources or visibility he had. If he could use his platform to push research forward, then he felt it was his responsibility to do so. The foundation quickly became one of the leading organizations in the world focused on Parkinson's research. It brought together scientists, doctors, and patients in a way that had never been done before, creating a strong and hopeful community. With the foundation in motion, something shifted inside Michael. Purpose began to replace the despair that had once controlled his days. Instead of focusing only on what the disease had taken from him, he looked at what he could still do for others. Helping raise awareness, funding research, and speaking openly about his daily struggles gave him a sense of direction. He went from quietly suffering to publicly advocating. This new purpose didn't erase the challenges of living with Parkinson's, but it gave his life a deeper meaning. It helped him move forward with confidence and clarity. Through it all, he found strength in knowing that his voice mattered and that his efforts were moving science forward. And as he stepped deeper into advocacy, his own physical battle with Parkinson's grew even more challenging. The battle inside. Living with Parkinson's disease has shaped every part of Michael J. Fox's daily life. What the public often sees, his smile, sense of humor, and calm presence, only shows a small part of what he goes through. Behind the scenes, he relies heavily on medication just to move, speak, and function. Parkinson's affects the brain's ability to produce dopamine, which controls movement. For Michael, this means he lives on a strict schedule of medications throughout the day. When the medicine is working, he can speak clearly, stay mobile, and interact with others in a way that feels natural. When it wears off, his body can stiffen and tremble. He once explained that the difference between mobility and paralysis comes down to timing his medication correctly. Even a small delay can change how he feels and what he can do. In 1998, he made the difficult choice to undergo a thalamotomy, a brain surgery meant to reduce the severe tremors that were affecting his daily life. The procedure involved making a small, targeted lesion in a specific area of the brain responsible for motion control. It carried real risks, including speech problems, balance issues, or complications that could make his symptoms worse. Still, he decided it was worth trying because the tremors had become so disruptive that simple tasks were becoming impossible. The surgery brought him partial relief. It didn't stop the progression of the disease, but it helped him regain some control during a time when he desperately needed stability. Michael has always been open about the limits of his treatment. In his memoir, No Time Like the Future, he wrote that without medication, he would be stone-faced, mute, and frozen. This was not an exaggeration. When the effects of medicine wear off, Parkinson's can leave him unable to move or speak. His facial muscles can freeze. His body may not respond. It is a reality he faces every day, even when he is smiling through interviews or public events. His transparency helps people understand that the moments when he appears steady require serious effort and medical support. As the years passed, the disease continued to move forward. Slow progression is part of Parkinson's, and Michael has dealt with each new symptom as it arrived. The tremors grew stronger, his muscles stiffened, his voice weakened, and at times became difficult to control. Memory problems also began to appear, making acting, once second nature, much harder. He has shared openly that memorizing lines, one of his strongest skills in his early career, has now become a challenge. Each loss forced him to adjust and find new ways to communicate and stay active. And while the physical challenges grew, the emotional and mental battles that followed would be just as demanding. Retirement and return. By the late 1990s, Michael J. Fox was balancing two intense realities. On one side, he was the witty, fast-talking star of Spin City, leading a hit TV show and proving he could still command the screen. On the other side, Parkinson's disease was quietly taking more and more from his body. By 2000, the strain became too great. The long hours, constant movement, and pressure of being a series lead were almost impossible to manage while dealing with worsening symptoms. That year, after completing his 100th episode, he announced he was leaving Spin City. This was his first real retirement from acting. It was not just a career decision, it was a health decision. Stepping away meant he could focus more on his family and his foundation, and on trying to live with the disease in a more sustainable way. For many people, this might have been the end of their time in the spotlight. But for Michael, it was more like a pause than a full stop. In the years that followed, he slowly reinvented how he approached his work. He shifted his focus to advocacy and writing, but the love for acting never left him. After almost a decade away from major regular roles, he began to return to the screen in a new way. Instead of carrying a whole series, he took on smaller, carefully chosen parts that worked with his condition. He appeared in shows like Scrubs, Boston Legal, Rescue Me, and The Good Wife. These roles were often written to include his Parkinson's symptoms, which allowed him to perform without hiding what he was going through. Each guest role became a small personal victory, They proved that he was still capable, still sharp, and still able to move audiences, even as his body placed limits on what he could do. For him, these appearances were not just about staying visible. They were about showing that a person with a serious illness could still create meaningful work. In 2013, he took a bigger step with The Michael J. Fox Show, a sitcom loosely based on his own life. It was a brave attempt to blend comedy and the reality of living with Parkinson's. While the show did not last long, it showed just how willing he was to be open and honest on screen about his condition. By 2019, though, the disease had progressed further. Michael shared in interviews that acting had become much more difficult. His short-term memory was weaker, making it hard to memorize lines. His voice, which once carried so much energy and rhythm, had become less reliable. Some days he could speak clearly, other days he struggled. Faced with these challenges, he made the hard choice to step away from acting for good. It was a quiet surrender, not of his spirit, but of the belief that he could keep performing at the level he expected of himself. And as his time on screen faded, the role his family played in his life only grew more important and more moving. The Rush Limbaugh controversy. By 2006, Michael J. Fox had become one of the most respected public voices for Parkinson's research. He used his platform not for personal attention, but to push for funding that could speed up scientific progress. That year, he appeared in a political ad supporting a Senate candidate who backed stem cell research. The ad was simple, direct, and honest. Michael sat in a chair and spoke about why funding research mattered. His body moved noticeably due to the effects of Parkinson's. And for many viewers, it was the first time they saw the full physical reality of his illness. He wasn't acting. He wasn't hiding anything. He was letting people see what life with Parkinson's looked like for him. The reaction was immediate and strong, but not all of it was positive. Conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh accused Michael of exaggerating his symptoms for sympathy. He even suggested that Michael had purposely skipped his medication before filming the ad. The comments caused outrage, confusion, and sadness, especially among people who understood the challenges of Parkinson's. For Michael and his family, the accusations were not only cruel but also deeply uninformed. They questioned his honesty at a moment when he was being completely vulnerable. Michael chose not to respond with anger. Instead, he explained the truth with calm clarity. He said he had not skipped his medication at all. In fact, he had taken too much. The result was dyskinesia, uncontrolled movements caused by the medication itself. He described the situation clearly. The disease affected him without medication, and the medication carried its own side effects. There was no version of the day where he looked normal. He reminded the public that no one living with Parkinson's wants to be visibly symptomatic. The involuntary movements were painful and exhausting, not something a person would ever choose to display. His explanation was powerful because it exposed a major misunderstanding. Many people didn't realize that Parkinson's treatment is complicated. Medications can help someone move and speak, but they can also create sudden, jerking motions. There is no perfect balance, no easy solution. Michael's honesty helped educate millions of people about what the disease actually looks like and how unpredictable it can be. And as the public debates faded, his deepest battles continued at home, where his family faced the long journey of supporting him through the later stages of the disease. Family as lifeline. One of the strongest parts of Michael J. Fox's life has always been his family. At the center of that support is his wife, Tracy Pollan. They met on the set of Family Ties, fell in love, and built a life grounded in trust and teamwork. When he was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 29, Tracy became the steady force he needed. Michael has often said she brings a no-drama strength to every situation. She doesn't panic, and she doesn't back away from hard moments. Instead, she focuses on what needs to be done and how to move forward. Her calm approach helped balance the fear and confusion he felt in the early years of his illness. She faced each new stage of Parkinson's with him, supporting him without letting the disease define their relationship. Together, they raised 4 children: Sam, the twins Aquina and Skylar, and their youngest, Esme. The kids grew up with a father who was both a famous actor and a man dealing with a difficult neurological disease. They saw him at red carpets and award shows, but they also saw him struggle to walk across a room or control his hands. For them, Parkinson's was simply part of their home life. It wasn't something hidden or whispered about. Michael and Tracy made sure their children understood the illness without being frightened by it. They answered questions honestly and kept communication open, which helped the kids feel secure, even when things were unpredictable. Humor became one of the family's strongest tools. Michael has always been quick with a joke, and that humor carried into their household. Laughing together helped ease tension and remind everyone that joy could still exist in hard times. The family also relied on open conversations, constant check-ins, and a willingness to help each other when needed. These habits created a supportive environment where no one felt alone, including Michael himself. Their family bond didn't erase the sadness, but it gave them the strength to face it together. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.